I don't care what anyone says. It's normal when you're working with a company for 1, 2, 3, 4 years to have a month in there. In reality, it's multiple months where you just didn't do so great. And it could be due to a lot of things, such as like maybe your sales season. It could be due to maybe trying a new type of content. It could be due to a new campaign that customers just didn't really connect with. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to have this conversation with your boss or manager. And if you're a freelancer, I think this is also a good video to save for later because it's a good conversation to have with your client if you also have a lower performing month. Before we get into the nitty gritty of things, I just want to quickly point out that the goal here is I don't want you to be on the defensive or feel like you are being backed into a corner. The goal with this video is to give you the confidence to have this mature professional conversation. So I just wanted to add that little disclaimer here. Okay, so the first thing I always do when I have this conversation with my boss or my manager is try to reiterate that social media is a long-term marketing strategy. It's not going to be like other digital marketing efforts such as paid ads. Paid ads are a lot about really good, quick wins, whereas social media is definitely going to be more about building those long-term relationships. To me, social media marketing is about building brand personality, brand recognition, credibility. You're creating a community of customers that are going to not want to buy from you once or twice, but buy from you for years ongoing. Before you begin your conversation, getting into the details of what your analytics look like the previous month, I always like to start the conversation with this disclaimer. Hey, so-and-so, before we begin working together, I want to discuss the potential results of a strong social media strategy. This is something you and I have been working on for the past few months or something that you've been in the know about. And as you know, it's a long-term marketing strategy where results just really take time, but the payoff is going to be so worth it. Ideally, you would have this conversation with your boss, maybe when you initially get hired. You might need to remind them every once in a while, but if you haven't done that, that's totally okay. What do they say? There's never a better time than the present. Okay, so now we're getting into a little bit of the harder part of the conversation, but I want you to be confident and be very clear here. This is where you're gonna share your results, but be very transparent and do not sugarcoat things. It's really tempting to downplay low metrics because they make us look bad, but really transparency is gonna be the key here to making sure you have a successful conversation. Give them real numbers to work with and avoid fluff. Numbers are gonna equal data, and someone who knows the data and can speak to that is gonna sound better than someone who's just talking out their butt, honestly. When you're upfront about the data from the previous month, you and your boss can get to the root of the issue faster, and it becomes you two against the problem as opposed to you two against each other. So for example, I would maybe say something like this. This month, our engagement was low. Normally, we have an engagement rate of around 6%, but it dropped to 2%. I believe this is because we focus too much on product posts and our audience tends to engage with more human-centered content. So you can see here that I gave my boss real numbers to work with, and I also explained why I believe the data is reflecting in that way. So for example, a 6% engagement rate is quite good, 2% is not great. That's a pretty big drop, but I gave a reason as to why I think the data looks like that. Okay, so this is kind of an interesting point and something that you definitely need to think about before you go into your meeting, but I really recommend using neutral terms. When I say using neutral terms or neutral language, it's because we want to avoid an emotional response. And a lot of words like bad, poor, negative, they kind of elicit a negative response from people. So for example, I really wouldn't say, hey boss, we had a bad month on social media. We had a terrible month on social media, right? Because it doesn't inspire any confidence. So I prefer to say the term low performing. And the reason I prefer to say that is because it doesn't elicit as much of a negative emotional response. And it also implies that we can solve the problem, low performing, high performing, very similar terms, as opposed to just dwelling on the problem if I said bad or terrible. Do you remember earlier when I presented those low performing metrics to my boss, but then I gave a reason as to why I believe we performed that way? Well, now we're gonna wrap everything up. Okay, so you reiterated that social media is a long-term strategy, you presented your metrics and didn't sugarcoat everything, so you're using neutral language. Now it's your time to shine as a professional and share your action plan. The reality is that when you're a social media manager, you're dealing with people, you're dealing with the internet, you're dealing with so many different factors that you are going to have months that don't perform well as others. That's just the nature of how things work. It's how you deal with it that I think makes you really shine as a professional and really the value that you bring to your company. So, in the face of bad or low performing metrics, I want you to share an action plan to improve. For example, this is maybe an action plan I would come up with. Hey so-and-so, based off the data I just presented, I now believe that our audience tends to engage more with human-centered content than product-focused content. What I would like to do is reintroduce more customer and employee content to boost our engagement rates back up. Because I know you like to feature our product in more of the videos, I think that we should connect our product with more people. So maybe when we record videos, we have people holding our product as opposed to just talking about it instead. I would love to schedule a content shoot with you and maybe schedule out a couple days with our customers this month to get back on track and film additional long and short form content since we have both a YouTube and a TikTok strategy. What do you think? The thing is, when you're a social media manager, is you're dealing with people, you're dealing with the internet, which is so unstable, so you're gonna have negative months. When you offer a clear action plan for improvement, you're not just showing your boss that you can identify problems, but you're showing them that you can solve those problems as well. So in summary, start your conversation off by framing social media as a long-term strategy. Share your metrics, be very clear, don't sugarcoat things. Use neutral language such as low performing, try to avoid words like bad or terrible. Then present an action plan to show that you can not only identify problems, but you can solve them as well. All right, that's it. Thank you so much for watching. Every view, every like that I get really means a lot to me, especially as like a super tiny little channel right now. If you have anything that you would like to see in an upcoming video, feel free to drop me a comment or send me a message on Instagram. I put the link in my bio. And finally, if you're looking for more personalized guidance as an in-house social media manager, I'm now offering one-on-one consulting sessions, and I put the link in my bio as well. All right, see you next week.